Here we are at the Bassmaster Classic 2025, and today we're going to go on the media day and hopefully get a couple interviews with the pros. Here with Patrick Walters. My first question is, when did you decide you wanted to be like professional angler?
I decided I wanted to fish professionally, I would say, when I was in the 10th grade.
Yeah.
I was in high school, and that's when I'd always fished and hunted growing up. And then, just watching the Elite Series guys, it was 10th grade. I was actually playing football and baseball, and I quit playing baseball my sophomore year of high school to chase the dream. So, sophomore year.
Second question, if you're stranded on an island and you have two other Elite Series anglers, who would you pick and why?
That's a good question. I'd say probably like Rick Clunn, which he's not now, but he would be able to like calm you down and meditate you. And then probably Lee. He's gonna find a way to get off that island. And if we have to take somebody else out, you'd want somebody to take next time.
My cameraman.
Third question,
Okay,
what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
You like a lost dog.
That's a good question. My most embarrassing moment, it's hard to say. It's probably like at the beginning of every tournament when your stomach locks up after that cup of coffee and you're like, well, we got to go find that ladder. And sometimes we're not able to make it to the hill. So
Here with Wes Logan, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you should fish professionally?
Probably sometime when I was in high school. I was playing high school sports, but you gotta get the idea that you're not gonna make it professionally in that. So I don't know, I just started fishing bigger tournaments, and it kind of rolled into that.
My second question is, if you're stranded on an island and you could pick two other Elite Series anglers, who would you pick and why?
Any reason?
Any reason?
Yeah, any reason.
I would probably pick Wesley Gore just because I like being around him. And I don't know, whoever can cook good, I don't know. maybe like Hackney or something, because I feel like Hackney can like go kill something and catch it or something. So I'd probably take Hackney too.
Thank you. We're here with Cody Huff, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
Man, I didn't know professional fishing was a thing for a long time. I just loved to catch fish, and through high school, kind of figured out that that's a possibility, and just kind of ran with it from there.
Second question is, if you're stranded on an island, you can pick two other Elite Series anglers, who would you pick and why?
I would probably pick Jason Christie so he could help me kill enough stuff to eat, and then might bring Rob or somebody just for somebody to laugh at.
Thank you. And then my third question is, what's your most embarrassing moment while fishing?
So my most embarrassing moment when I was fishing was not actually something I did. I had a marshal one time. I won't even say where so they don't get embarrassed. But she was a female.
Yeah.
And I was throwing top water down the riprap of this campground. Man, I was dialed in first morning of a big championship tournament, and she was my marshal. And all of a sudden I feel the boat shake. I've been visiting with everybody drinking coffee up there. And I turn around and she's got her britches down, going to the bathroom over the side right towards the campground. All these poor folks I've been talking to this whole time. And I just knew I was going to be on the internet before I got off the water.
That's great.
Here with Logan Parks. My first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
Man, I always loved fishing. I grew up pond fishing around the house. That's something I would do every day. My mom actually took away my bike instead of my PlayStation because I loved going to the lake, going to the ponds, and I didn't know really about tournament competition until I was a little bit older. I was in 6th grade or 8th grade, tried out for the junior varsity baseball team because I like playing baseball. I did not make the team because I wasn't that good, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I want to compete at something. So we actually got the high school fishing team started at Auburn High School. Me and my friend Lucas started up the team. We started fishing together, and our coach found some tournaments to enter. So we started fishing the Alabama Bass Nation, some high school stuff, and started doing well in those, and really was like, this is awesome. I love fishing. I'm competitive. I'm able to compete in these tournaments. Went on to fish at Auburn University, and here we are today.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Seems like yesterday I was wearing a jersey like that.
Second question, if you're stranded on an island and you could pick two other Elite Series, who would you choose and why?
If I was stranded on an island, I'd probably pick Drew Benton and Stetson Blaylock. They seem like really resourceful guys, and I think that we could probably shave Drew's beard off and start a fire or something.
Third question, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Most embarrassing moment? This may not need to be videoed, but I'll say it anyways. I was captaining some high school kids in a tournament about 4 or 5 years ago, and we were behind a bridge on Lay Lake in the back of Spring Creek, and I had went to Buffalo Wild Wings or something the night before, got some hot wings, and those things needed to go, and I didn't have time to react. I just had to go to the back of the boat, let it go. And I'm in the middle of the process of that, and I hear a loud noise, and tractors coming down the road across the bridge. And there's about 25 cars stacked up behind the tractor, and they can't pass them on the bridge. And the high school kids thought it was funny to turn the boat where I was facing the bridge, and people were honking, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Jeez. Robert G. And my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
Probably when I was 19, I believe. It was my freshman year of college, and you know, I had been a big sports player growing up, you know, and fisherman as well. And I realized once I got to college, I was like, man, I don't really want to have a real job. I want to fish professionally. So that's when I started fishing every day as much as I could.
Yeah. Second question is, if you're stranded on an island and you could pick 2 other Elite Series anglers, who would you choose and why?
Let's see. I would have to go with probably John, Garrett, and Cody Huff.
Yeah, why is that?
Yeah. Because, you know, they're probably the best 2 outdoorsman hunters that I know.
Yeah.
And they're gonna figure out either how to way to catch fish or kill an animal on that island, because they can call a turkey and ducks with their mouths. They don't even need a call. So I would feel like we would have a really good, strong chance of survival. And you know, my sneaky speed and agility would add to that trio.
My third question, what's your most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Let's think about that. Most embarrassing moment. Is this on live or just
No,
like
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I feel like I've had a bunch, honestly. I would say, you know, really something really embarrassing is whenever you pull up the trolling motor and the handle breaks and you just like fall into the bottom of the boat. That's always embarrassing. You kind of like hop up and look around to see if anybody's seen, just because you're embarrassed and nobody's around.
Yeah.
That's happened in front of people before for me. But I would say that's pretty embarrassing. I'm trying to think. I feel like I've had some really embarrassing moments. But that comes to mind, you know, first.
Yeah. Here with Carl Jochimson, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
When it was back in Australia, the ABT is Australian Bass Tournaments. They started in '99, and I think I was about 14, and we went down to the bank of a local lake that I was fishing, and they had about 20 boats lined up, and they had a couple American bass boats that were imported over, and I got to see like a fully decked out bass boat and sort of saw the tournament. So I was about 14, and I was just like, you know, obsessed with fishing, and that's when I was super competitive, and I was like, this is what I want to do, and I started competing from then on.
Second question is, if you're stranded on an island and you could pick 2 other Elite Series anglers, who would you pick and why?
2 elite guys. It'd just be probably Gussie, and 2's a bit rough because it'd be G-Man or BP, so I'd have to pick, but G-Man it'd keep us laughing and he'd be able to fix everything. BP can too, but yeah, probably those 2 boys.
Okay. Final question is, what's your most embarrassing moment you've ever had while fishing?
Embarrassing moment. What have I done? I've done some stuff for sure. Nothing too crazy on camera. I'm trying to think what I've done on camera. Everything's gone smooth so far. Fishing, probably just breaking one off. In 2015, when I was on the Elites, when my first year on the Elites at Gunnersville, I was landing a fish and my line was wrapped around the light pole, and it was a mess. And like you could tell, my nerves were high. So probably that.
You're Jay's a Current, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
Oh man, I decided I wanted to fish professionally when I was probably like 15 years old. That was like the time where I could finally, you know, kind of go by myself every once in a while. Maybe even a little bit later, 16 or 17, when I could first start driving. That's kind of when it first started for me.
Okay. Second question, if you're stranded on an island and you could pick two of the Elite Series anglers, who would you pick and why?
I would pick my two roommates I have. I would pick Wesley Gore and I would pick Alex Redwine, because they're complete opposites. Alex is kind of the, you know, funny, laid back one, and then me and Wesley are kind of like more straight face, stuff like that. So that'd be fun to have those.
Third question is, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while you're been fishing?
The most embarrassing moment I had was when I was fishing the Opens, and I actually just told this story a little while ago, but I was taking off and I had to go number 2 so bad that I didn't want to take off, but I ended up taking off. And as all the boats were going by, I got off on an island and took a number 2 and watched everybody take off. That was my most embarrassing story, probably.
We're here with Justin Hamner, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
Ooh. I mean, it's kind of been ever since I was little. That's always been my dream, but really going for it was, I mean, out of high school. It was like, you know, I was working all these odds and ends jobs just to try to save up and be able to fish the Opens and stuff, but I mean, I've known ever since I was a kid. That's what I wanted to do. So.
If you're stranded on an island, you could pick two of the Elite Series anglers, who would it be and why?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I feel like one of them, it'd have to be Patrick, I mean, obviously. And then I think we'd have to go like somebody for food. I feel like Poroznik, he's gonna find us some food. And if not, like, there's a lot there. We won't go that route, but it'll be a good time. I can tell you that. It won't be any downtime.
And then my final one, what's your most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Oh gosh, there's too many. I mean, we had a situation one time with toilet paper in a large hill, and it rolled down, and I was at the top still. That one was pretty embarrassing. Having to crawl down a hill with your pants down. That'll make you feel like it.
So we're here with Scott Martin, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
Oh boy, it's a good question. I don't know the exact date, but I would say that it was when my dad won the Bassmaster Invitational on Lake Okeechobee, and he won it in the parking lot of our marina. He held the trophy up there. Ray Scott gave him the trophy for that champion. And I was about 12 or 13 years old, and I helped my dad practice that week. I went in the boat with him several times, and so I kind of felt like I was a part of that victory. And I thought to myself, I want to stand on that stage one day and hold the trophy. And so this last year, when I won the Open there in that same parking lot, hold up that same trophy, it was a pretty special moment.
The second question is, if you're stranded on an island and you'd pick two other Elite Series anglers to go with you, who would it be and why?
Man, I would pick, that's a good question. I'm going to pick Tyler Williams, because he can catch them any way possible, so he can provide food for us. And then probably Tyler Rivette for safety reasons.
Yeah. My third question is, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Probably falling out of the boat while I was fighting the fish one time. I stepped right out of the front of the boat.
Yeah.
I thought I was in the middle, and I was not. And I stepped over, thought I was stepping in the boat. Next thing you know, I literally was underwater. I still had the rod in my hand, I can still feel the fish pulling, and I'm trying to figure, do I let go and swim, or do I drown? I didn't know what to do, but I finally got back in the boat, actually caught the fish.
That's awesome. Here with Easton Fothergill, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
You know, I kind of had these little thoughts, you know, in high school and even younger than that I might want to do it, but it really didn't come to fruition for me until college, and I started traveling the country, and that's when I really, I guess, decided that I love to travel, and this is really what I wanted to do and wanted to pursue. So from then on is when I took college fishing like 110%, and you know, that's what got me here. So yeah, I guess.
Second question for you is, if you're stranded on an island and you could pick 2 other elite series anglers to go with you, who would it be and why?
Number 1, I'm taking Lee Livesey. He'll fight any dangers that come up. And number 2, we'll pick Colin Patrick, who'll be the entertainment for the week. So that's my 2 anglers.
My third question is, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Embarrassing moment. Probably falling in the lake. I was fishing a big crowd of boats in a college event, and I actually fell in one time. So that's probably
Here with Tyler Williams, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
It's been kind of a weird thing, because like when I started fishing, I always wanted to fish at the highest level. I didn't really know the professional parts of it. I didn't even know what the steps were, but when I started doing it in Maine, I decided I want to fish big tournaments. So I thought the opens were big tournaments. The first year I fished, I didn't even know that the elites, how that all worked. So then once I got going, I got good at it. I was like, I just want to fish at the highest level. Like whatever it is, the elites, wherever I need to be. And that's probably been a dream since I started fishing in Maine. Not necessarily the actual pro aspect of it, but just the biggest tournaments I can be a part of, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So I was probably 16 when I decided I want to do this.
My second question is, if you're stranded on an island and you could pick 2 other elite series anglers to go with, who would it be and why?
I want to pick my buddies Trey and JT, but they're kind of helpless on the island. Like, I'd be doing most of the work. So probably Caleb Summerall and maybe Lee Livesey, because I feel like they can survive on an island. Well, they might carry me.
My third question is, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Probably the St. Lawrence last year. I had a stomach flu, and I had to go number 2 off the boat about 14 times throughout the tournament, throughout the day. That was pretty bad. I had a Canadian marshal. He didn't really speak much English. He just kept looking at me, and I'm like, stop. Like, look away. That was pretty embarrassing.
Here with Cooper Gallant, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
The day I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life was probably, I'm going to say two situations. The first one was when we won our first tournament in the States back in 2014 on the St. Lawrence River. And then the first classic I ever went to watch and spectate, I think was 11 years ago. And when I saw the classic and I saw how big it was and how cool it was and how big of a show was put on, and when I started to realize that guys were doing this for a living, I'm like, man, I got to figure out a way to do this. And I, fished the high school program and did a lot of local stuff back home, and slowly started to come down to the States and grinding down here, and we got lucky, and now we're fishing full time. It's crazy.
Second question is, if you're stranded on an island and you pick 2 other elite series guys to be with you, who would it be and why?
Good questions, eh? I'd probably say, man, I'm gonna say Caleb Summerall, just because I feel like he'd be a go-getter. Like, he would go get wood and like he'd be hustling. He'd make us a big house and make sure we're set. And then I'd probably say someone like G-Man or Matt. They'd make you laugh all day long.
Third question is, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Most embarrassing moment I've had while fishing. The first thing that came to mind in my first ever classic 3 years ago, got to my first spot and I pull out a crankbait rod and I go to make the longest cast, and I load it up and I hit my marshal right in the head, and I felt so bad. He's like 17 and I felt so bad for him. It went right through his hat and like into his skull. I felt terrible and I was embarrassed, and yeah.
Perfect. We're here with John Cox, and my first question for you is, when did you realize you wanted to fish professionally?
Oh gosh, so this goes way back, but I think I was like 13. I fished my first John Boat Club, and I think my mom paid the $25 entry fee, and I think I won $30, and my mom let me keep it, and from that day, I was like, God, I want to do this the rest of my life.
Our second question is, if you're stranded on an island and you could pick 2 other Elite Series anglers, who would you choose?
Ooh, man, I'd probably go with, probably Hackney. I feel like he could survive on nothing, and then I'd probably bring Brandon Lester because he's a pretty good cook,
Yeah.
So those would be the 2 I would take.
My third and final question for you is, what's your most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Oh man, I'll have to say it was probably a couple classics ago. I had some bad Mexican the night before, and I had about 15 guys follow me to the spot. And when I got there, I had to use the bathroom. I had to run up on the bank and try to find the widest tree I could. It was pretty embarrassing.
Awesome. Here with Caleb Summerall. My first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
When I decided I wanted to fish professionally, I was fishing a local tournament around the house, and it was the biggest tournament of that area. It was called the Louisiana Sportsman's Tournament.
Yeah.
It drew almost 300 boats, and that was a big deal for the area I fished. And jumped in it last minute one time, never forget it. And was actually supposed to go to Toledo Bend to fish another tournament, but we had to stay later for work. So me and my team partner jumped in this tournament last minute, and we ended up winning. So had a big bass of the second day, and overall winning weight, ended up taking home like $14,000. And ever since then, the fire was lit, man. I was kind of doing it around the house, enjoying catching some bass for the local tournaments and stuff, but winning that big one, getting that little bit of notoriety around the house, I was like, yeah, I want to kick this up a notch. So that's how that happened.
Second question is, if you're stranded out on an island.
Stranded out on an island.
And you could pick 2 other Elite Series anglers.
Okay.
Who would it be and why?
Ooh, good one. I got to pick my dog Lee Livesey, because obviously we've been in situations like that before, probably. We've always come through. And who would be our third? I don't know if we need anybody else. I'm going to go ahead and say, you're talking about the entire Elite Series field? Clifford Perch. Stone cold killer. He grows up on the mountain doing all that elk hunting. That'd be, we're coming out of there. That's a good one.
What's your most embarrassing moment while fishing?
My most embarrassing moment while fishing, I was by myself fishing in Champlain. I went to relieve myself off the back of the boat on one side, and I noticed some people on the bridge I was fishing pretty close to, so I went to the other side of the boat, and it was kind of rainy, had my flip-flops on, and I slipped off the back corner of my Express, and the wind was blowing pretty good, so my pants were undone, flip-flops were on, and I fell in the water while I was fishing, and then the wind took my boat, so I had to swim towards my boat, finally kicked my flip-flops off and caught up to my boat by the hardest, and got back in my boat like a wet dog. That was pretty embarrassing, looking around, make sure nobody saw. Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Thank you so much. Trey McKinney, my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
Shoot, that's a loaded question, isn't it all? I mean, you don't know what you're getting into until you try to start living it, and then it gets crazy. But there's one time in your life when you kind of realize, like, what does it mean to be fishing on the Bassmaster Elite Series? And once I realized that, and I got the concept of how much it meant to me that I had to be there, that's when the drive kicked in. That's when I knew I had to push as harder as ever to get to this level and be able to fish, because I love it. It's something about tricking a green bass to eat my cricket that I love. I can't get enough of it. And that's why I think we're all here.
Second question is, if you're stranded on an island, you can pick 2 other Elite Series guys to go with you. Who would it be and why?
Probably Caleb Summerall, because he could lift a tree and he can build anything. And then we're going to go with probably JT, because he can cook. So we have both best worlds there.
My third question for you is, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Most embarrassing moment? I've had a lot of them, to be honest with you. Watching people load my boat the other day, that was pretty embarrassing. We had a few embarrassing moments, but they kind of all add up. The main thing is keep track of the little things where you don't have those, like me, but we're trying to get out of that. Less is possible. You know, sometimes quiet is good, but all publicity is good publicity to a certain tint.
Hey, with Corey Johnston, and my first question for you is, when did you decide you wanted to fish professionally?
Man, I grew up in a bass boat, and I didn't know at what level I wanted to fish or could fish, but I mean, I always knew I wanted to make a living fishing one way or another, and all worked out here at the Bassmaster Classic, so kind of dream come true, I guess you could say.
Second question for you is, if you're stranded on an island, you could pick 2 other elite shooters anglers to go with you, who would it be and why?
Probably one of them would be my brother, because I know he can kill stuff too and we won't starve. He can catch a bass. We don't want to eat those, because I'd rather starve before I eat a bass. One other one, maybe Hackney. He's an outdoorsman. Yeah, I think we could survive with him.
Third question is, what's the most embarrassing moment you've had while fishing?
Well, first Bassmaster Classic I ever fished, I weighed in, I think, 1 bass. And just had it like one of the worst days I've ever had fishing. So that was probably one of the worst.
Okay.